Hi, this is Rob Rotman for Adapt Chicago Productions. Today we have a discussion of a play opening in the spring at the Raven Theater, The Bird Feeder Doesn't Know, by Todd Bauer, who is a good friend of mine. He is a playwright, and he is also a professor of dramatic literature at Newberry Library. I'd like to welcome Mr. Michael Menendian and Jonathan Wilson. Jonathan is the director of the play. Michael is the producer of the play, which will open at the Raven Theater. Gentlemen, welcome. Michael, tell us a little bit about the history of the Raven Theater and how it started and everything.
Sure. Raven Theater was founded in 1983 by myself, my wife, who's also the co-artistic director, and a group of other artists who are no longer in the company. We were in Rogers Park for about 15 years, and when we lost that space in 2000, we settled into an old grocery store in Edgewater, where we've made our home since opening our doors in 2002.
Great. Have you dealt with plays that deal with disabled characters?
Well, over the years, we've done various stories that dealt with outsiders,
right.
And people that had reached a certain age and unable to cope with life, but specifically not with disability.
Well, I was thinking the one issue, maybe the play. I remember you guys. I think I came here in '87. Was it the year before you did the Tally trilogy?
We did. We've done 2 of the 3 Tally plays. Tally's Folly being one of them, right?
Jonathan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a professor of theater and drama at Loyola University of Chicago, where I teach classes in acting and play direction. I'm also a freelance professional stage director.
Right. What are some of, maybe people have seen, what are some of the shows you've done?
Sure. I've directed plays by August Wilson. I've done work, research and scholarship on the works of Eugene O'Neill, and directed O'Neill plays here in the city.
Right. And did you direct Member of the Wedding?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well, that character had a visual disability.
That's true.
Which, yes, the great Carson McCullers. Michael, why did Raven Theater decide, and how did you decide to do Todd's play?
Todd asked me to direct a reading of his play at the Newberry Library about 3 years ago, and it was his earlier version of what we are now producing. That went over quite well, and Raven Theater has a program called Working Title, where we develop new works in a much more elaborate staging that is not a full production. So I invited Todd to do The Bird Feeder Doesn't Know as part of our Working Title series, and I directed that at Raven Theater 2 years ago. And that went over quite big, quite well, and we thought it touched on subject that you do not see very often on Chicago stages, dealing with a son with a disability and then 2 aging parents. And it was also a subject matter that speaks to everyone, whether you're young and have grandparents or older and dealing with your parents, and how that comes to life when you reach a point in your life when you can no longer really take care of yourself. And the fact that their only child is a son with cerebral palsy, and therefore he has his own limitations. And we thought this would be a right fit for our theater with our mission of doing plays about the American experience.
Right. Jonathan, how did you come on board as the director of this play, and why did you decide to direct it?
Well, I've seen several productions at Raven Theater, and I've been an admirer of this gentleman. I think he's one of the finest directors in the city, and they do outstanding work at Raven Theater. And so I had a chance to, I asked a former student of mine who is currently the executive director of Raven Theater about asking about the possibility of directing a show there, and she contacted me and said, we have a play that you might be interested in. Michael sent it to me, I read it, and I said, wow, this is a very, very important play. Michael said, would you like to direct it? And I said, yes.
Great. Jonathan, Todd does have a visual disability. How do you and he work? What is the rehearsal process between you two?
He's at every rehearsal, which is very, very good.
Yeah.
And we started out with a dinner prior to the rehearsal process, in which we talked about all of the things that the ideas that are in it. Right. And I was very, very moved by it, because the whole process of aging, I think, is something that we all go through. And then to top it off, the struggle of this young man who has cerebral palsy, who is dealing with not only the condition itself, but also the struggle of taking care of his parents, who put a great deal of pressure on him. That I thought, wow, this is something that I think a lot of people can relate to, both in terms of senior citizens and also in terms of people who have disability.
Right.
Todd himself has a disability. He's blind.
Right.
But as a playwright, I think that his disability, to one extent, is his strength, because he has heightened his ear. Yeah. The language in this play, I think, is right on the mark in terms of creating very realistic characters, a very realistic situation, and a very moving play overall.
Now, the actor who is playing the son, does he have a disability?
No, he does not.
And I understand that he's going through an interesting, how is he preparing to do this role?
He has gone to YouTube and looked at a number of people who have this disability. He has been studying the condition itself, so that we hope that when he finally performs it, that those who have disability will come in and say, especially those who have cerebral palsy, yes, I know what that is. I see what's going on there. I believe that actor.
Yeah, that's great. How both of you, how does the disability issue in the play and the theme of old age play to a larger audience?
Well, I find that the dynamics between the son with the disability and the parents who are aging is most fascinating, because he is ambulatory enough to get around on his own. He drives, he walks, he doesn't need a wheelchair, he doesn't need any special assistance. So that one of the main conflict in the play is that he lives several hours away from his parents in the big city, and they want him to take care of them as they get older, and he simply can't, because he doesn't want to give up his life in the big city. So the issue of disability is used sometimes in the course of the story as leverage on the son's part, that he uses that sometimes as an excuse for not being able to go back and forth with great regularity and help his parents out. So it's really an interesting dynamic that I think Todd created, where is a disability truly a disability, and where is it a kind of
liability?
A liability, and maybe just a little bit of a trump card in your pocket, if you know what I mean.
And then there's another issue with regard to his situation, is that he was born and raised with the condition, and as a result, in the play, you see this tension that he's caught in the middle between a father who says, "Go on, you can do everything any normal child can do," and then his mother is saying, "No, he can't. He's disabled. He can't do these things." And so there's a lot of tension between the father and the mother, with the son ever being caught in between.
Yeah, and that's I know I experienced that growing up. And what else do you want people to come away with from the play, both of you?
From my perspective, these characters, especially the parents, have fairly major flaws in their characters themselves. They have strong biases racially and in many other ways that are not what we would consider politically correct at all, and yet they have this great attachment to each other and to their son. So there's a family dynamic that you walk away with saying, well, they weren't terribly likable people on one level, but yet I had a fair amount of compassion for them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of important to see that, you know, despite all your flaws, that you're still a human being, and that the son, despite his disability, has a tremendous amount of talent and skill that cannot be overlooked.
Right.
So maybe we look at it leaving the theater thinking, oh, maybe I know someone like that that I have not treated in the same vein as I might have wanted to.
Jonathan, do you want to add anything to that? Or
just that one of the things I liked about the play is that regardless of the hardships that they're experiencing, the father, the mother, the son, they use humor to help deal with it. Do you know? If you're going to be disabled, it doesn't mean that your life is over or everything is tragic. You need to laugh. You need to laugh about it sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Not take life so seriously. People need to not view people who are disabled as people who are tragic in some way, but rather respect them for who they are, and also learn to become close friends with them, and enjoy life using a sense of humor.
Yeah. Okay, well, how both of you can you, you know, people with disabilities, most have very low incomes. How are you going to make the play accessible to people with disabilities?
Well, Raven Theater offers a variety of discounts. So there's senior discounts. There are online discounts for half-price tickets. Our previews are quite affordable as well. Various other promotions that we have. The easiest thing is to go to raventheater.com and just navigate through our website or call us. The phone number will be there as well, and we'll be glad to help.
Michael, could you please tell us what services does Raven Theater offer for people who are disabled?
There are several. The most important is that Raven Theater is built on the ground floor, so there are no steps to climb for anybody. It's very easy access with wheelchairs. We meet all ADA requirements. And we also have listening devices for the hearing impaired that can be requested at the box office. And we do every show that we do at Raven Theater has one performance dedicated to a touch tour for the visually impaired, with a detailed description of the set. The actors come out, they talk to the patrons, and they get a very clear picture of exactly what they're going to be listening to for the rest of the performance.
And do you possibly have signed performances?
Well, we do not yet. We've been looking into that, but we do not yet. Okay,
both of you. So as we come to a close, what would you like to add about Jonathan about this play? And
I think that Todd Bauer has written a very beautiful tragic comedy. And I think that it's going to be a play that is going to have a long life. It's got so many issues in it that anybody can relate to, especially senior citizens, but everybody can relate to. And so I'm very, very pleased to have the honor to be working on it with him.
Great. Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think that it's the play is both timely and has a certain universal appeal that, as Jonathan said, will last a long time. And I think Jonathan's the perfect person to put this up on its feet for the first time.
I got to see All My Sons, which is another play about parents and children. So great. Well, thank you both very much. Looking forward to a great show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
you.
Hi, this is Will Cowing from Adaptive Chicago Productions. I'm here with Joel Margolis, and we're going to have just a brief discussion on a couple of interesting subjects. And Joel, I wanted to ask you about vaccinations. That's been in the news an awful lot.
It has been in the news, and there's a great deal of confusion out there. The simple truth is that there is no evidence linking these various infant vaccinations to autism or other developmental disabilities.
Well, wasn't there something about that in the British magazine, medical magazine, Lancet?
There was indeed. What started this whole movement was an article that appeared in The Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious medical journals that has been published for over a century, in which the author alleged that vaccinations typically given in the Western world to infants were producing an inordinate number of cases of autism. And that then gave rise to a series of followers in the U.S. and other places demanding that vaccinations not be given to their infants. However, it has now been found, number one, the author of that article has come forward and confessed that he falsified his findings.
So autism is not from a vaccination?
Definitely not. Number two, The Lancet did something they have rarely done in their century-plus history. They repudiated that entire article. Number three, the British Medical Board that licenses physicians in Britain has revoked the license of that physician who wrote the article and forbidden him from practicing medicine at any time in Britain for the rest of his life, period.
Wow. So people that have children, young children, and they want them to be vaccinated, there's no problem. That's not going to cause autism or Down syndrome or anything.
None of that. What was going on in some of these cases is that because autism often sets on when a child is about 2 years old or becomes noticeable at that point, is some people were beginning to say that it was being caused by the vaccinations given in very early childhood and infancy. But that was a false connection, and that idea has been completely repudiated.
Oh, good, good. We want everybody to know that. Now I want to segue from that because we have something in our website. Adapt of Chicago Productions has a website. So you go to Adapt of Chicago Productions Facebook, and you will see something in there about all the different types of vaccinations and the fact that they produce no harm to anybody ever.
Now, exactly where do people find this website?
Okay, you have to go to type in Adapt of Chicago Productions Facebook, and you'll get it. And our Lynn Predetto does an excellent job in there. There's all kinds of fascinating things in there.
Should you include the word of, or can you just type in Adapt Productions Facebook?
Well, yeah, you can get away with that.
That sounds like it's probably the quickest and speediest way.
Well, what I do, I just put Adapt Productions, and then you on the screen you'll see a bunch of Adapt Theater Productions, Adapt of Brazil, whatever. But it says Adapt of Chicago Productions Facebook. You click on that, and there you are. And there's a tremendous amount of information about our shows.
So the key phrase is Adapt of Chicago Productions.
Right.
Clicking on that will then bring up a series of menus that gives the viewer choice.
Facebook, yeah, right.
Sounds very good. Thank you.
And
do you have any other websites that you want to recommend?
Funny you should mention that. There is another website I'd like to talk about. It's called Disability Scoop.
And how does someone find that website?
Okay, you go to info, I-N-F-O, then the @ Disability Scoop, SCOOP.com. Got all kinds of information about developmental disabilities, children and adults. There's job offers all across the country. It's a nationwide one. So there's a lot of fascinating information for people that have children with autism, Down syndrome, DiGeorge, you name it. And I've been following that quite a bit.
As someone who uses the internet frequently, I found that it's often the most direct way is to type into your browser www, then the title of the publication or site, which in this case is Disability Scoop, and then .com.
You're most likely right, and thank you very much.
You're entirely welcome, and I look forward to talking with you again in another session of Adapt of Chicago Productions.
Very good.